Infamous jerk Fabio Fognini is at the center of another heated tennis controversy after being involved in yet another snarling altercation very recently. Fognini's spat with Slovenian Aljaz Bedene at the German Open in Hamburg highlights a wild week of tennis in which tempers have flared around the world. Now, make sure to keep watching to find out all the inside details. And trust us, you never want to miss this. Notorious star is embroiled in yet another drama as a never-ending tennis feud erupts after a match. Fabio Fognini, the notorious hothead, is at the center of another heated tennis storm after being involved in another intense altercation. Following Fognini's 6-3, 3-6, 7-6 win, Bedene and Fognini were separated by a chair umpire after they argued over an accusation in which Bedene appeared to suggest Fognini was pointing at incorrect markings on the clay court while discussing line rulings with chair umpire Aurelie Tourte. "You do this every time we play," he was heard saying on the broadcast. They argued for more than a minute next to the umpire's chair before walking back out onto the court to examine some line markings. The contentious conclusion ruined Fognini's big achievement of winning 400 career ATP Tour matches. In the second round, he will face Russian Karen Khachanov. Earlier in the day, at the ATP Tour in Trieste, Italy, veteran Ernest Gulbis clipped his opponent as they shook hands at the net. Gulbis won his final qualifying match, which ended in bizarre circumstances, to advance to the main draw. According to reports, the Latvian told opponent Matteo Martino, "I won and you lost. Man, learn to play tennis," with a loud scream in his opponent's direction. Gulbis then appeared to celebrate a moment in the second set. When given a warning for his outburst, Gulbis claimed he was simply saying, "Come on," but admitted he had looked into his opponent's eyes while doing so. He walked away from the chair umpire's exchange, asking, "Is this a sport or some kind of aristocratic dinner?" Gulbis was eliminated in the first round of the main draw. In other tennis news, Kyrgios speaks of his Wimbledon heartbreak. After announcing some bad news, Nick Kyrgios proved once again that he is a man of the people with an entertaining win in Washington. Nick Kyrgios continued his winning ways in Washington, defeating Marcos Gorin in the first round of the City Open. The Australian won his first singles match since losing to Novak Djokovic in the Wimbledon final last month, winning 6-3, 6-2 in 59 minutes. After serving on match point, Kyrgios returned to the crowd and spoke with a spectator. The Canberran, who is known for asking fans where he should serve, appeared to be doing just that. As he wrapped up the proceedings, it was clear that the advice had helped. In the tournament he won in 2019, Kyrgios blasted 12 aces and only lost 12 points off his own racket in a straight sets demolition. Tommy Paul is up next for the 27-year-old. "Last year when I played DC, I was in such a dark place. I'm just glad to be back here, where I won in 2019, Kyrgios said. The match came after Kyrgios announced on social media that he would not be competing in this year's Laver Cup, a team event that pits Team Europe against Team World, and where Kyrgios has previously provided plenty of entertainment. "And I was so close I almost tasted it. So it was really hard for me to stomach that loss, but I feel like I've done everything I can to bounce back. I've been training hard, my body's feeling good, and I'm serving great, so we'll see how it goes." Kyrgios came back to win his second men's doubles final, this time with Australian Thanasi Kokkinakis in the Atlanta Open final on Sunday. Speaking of Kyrgios, he recently saved the day at the City Open in Washington. Nick Kyrgios demonstrated his class by giving an elderly fan a nice souvenir after she was hit by a ball. Kyrgios hit a wayward return against Tommy Paul in the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday, which bounced into the stands and struck a spectator. Despite the fact that the ball was not hit particularly hard, the woman appeared shaken and clutched her head. Paul immediately checked on the fan while fellow spectators consoled her, before Kyrgios went over to the opposite side of the court to do the same. When he realized the woman was fine, he apologized by offering her one of his towels. While the gesture was heartfelt, the elderly fan appeared perplexed and asked the woman sitting next to her, "What's this for?" The Australian star advanced to the round of 16 with a 6-3, 6-4 victory, extending his recent hot streak. Next up, Venus Williams' brutal fate in her tennis comeback. Tough to watch. Venus Williams made a competitive return to singles tennis after nearly a year away, but it didn't go as planned after a meltdown in the third set at the City Open. Williams hasn't played a singles match since losing in the first round of the Chicago Women's Open to Shea Su Wei nearly a year ago. Despite returning at 42, much older than her other opponents, Williams demonstrated why she is a 7-time Grand Slam singles champion by winning the first set against Canadian Rebecca Marino. However, Marino came back in the second set to tie the match, highlighting Williams' lack of singles match practice. In the deciding set, Williams took an early 4-1 lead. However, in what was described as a difficult experience to witness, Williams struggled and a growing number of double faults cost the 42-year-old as Marino won 4-6, 6-1, 6-4. Despite the loss, the tennis world was overjoyed to see the tennis legend back on the court and competing. Fans praised Williams for her first singles match in a year, with her sister Serena Williams watching from the stands. Additionally, Venus and Serena Williams surprised the tennis world with a packed crowd at a surprise practice session before her return to competitive singles competition. Williams, who is not competing in the Washington, D.C. event, arrived early in the morning and was greeted by by a big crowd that had quickly gathered after word spread that the 23-time Grand Slam champion would be making an appearance. Despite the fact that Serena will not be returning until the National Bank Open in Toronto, fans were greeted with another treat as Venus took the court with her sister. Venus Williams will also compete for the first time in Toronto since 2019. Serena Williams is also aiming for a record-breaking 24th Grand Slam title at the US Open after announcing a busy schedule. Serena will compete in Toronto as well as the Cincinnati Open the following week. Serena will compete in both events for the first time since 2015. Now, in other tennis news, the absence of some Russian and Belarusian athletes continues to be a contentious issue. Here's what you need to know. The absence of Russian and Belarusian athletes from this year's championships was blamed on ignorance and carelessness, according to the former world number one. Following her return to the sport at the City Open, Victoria Azarenka slammed the ban that barred Russian and Belarusian athletes from competing in this year's Wimbledon championships. The former world number one last ever competed at Roland Garros, skipping the grass court swing leading up to Wimbledon, where she is a two-time semi-finalist, but she admitted she felt very connected to the sport despite her physical absence. "I'm on the player council, so I can't completely cut myself off," she said after defeating Ukraine's Diana Yastremska 6-4, 6-0. "I take that aspect of my job seriously. What I believe people missed here was a huge opportunity to demonstrate how sports can bring people together. I believe we blew that opportunity, but I hope we can still demonstrate it." The All England club imposed the ban in the months following Russia and Belarus's invasion of Ukraine. Despite being stripped of their flags and barred from team competitions such as the Davis Cup and the Billie Jean King Cup, Russian and Belarusian athletes have largely competed unhindered since the war began at the end of February. Azarenka won the last 8 games against Yastremska, who was personally affected by the invasion of Ukraine and eventually sought refuge in France with her mother and sister. When asked about the ban at Wimbledon, the 22-year-old was unsurprisingly adamant about keeping Russian and Belarusian athletes out of elite sport indefinitely. "If Russia and Belarus are out of competitions in other sports, I think in tennis it has to be the same," she said in July, taking issue with the ATP and WTA Tour's response to depriving Wimbledon of ranking points. And finally, Novak Djokovic's US Open ban, according to John Eisner, is complete lunacy. John Eisner claims he is working behind the scenes to get Novak Djokovic to compete in the US Open. Djokovic, a 21-time Grand Slam champion, has not been immunized against COVID-19 and will most likely miss the US Open because unvaccinated foreigners are not permitted to enter the country. Djokovic has received a lot of support since Wimbledon, with some calling it ridiculous that the Serb might miss the season's final Grand Slam due to his vaccination status. Djokovic took to social media this weekend to thank his fans and to reveal that he is preparing for the US Open as if he will be allowed to compete. "I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for the outpouring of support and love from all over the world these days." And there you have it, everything you need to know about the notorious star who is right in the thick of the drama as his never-ending tennis feud continues to play on. Make sure to let us know your thoughts down below, and as always, thanks for watching.